Welcome back, guys. It is Monday, so of course it is Manager Monday. As we do every week, we're going to be playing some management slash simulation style games where we kind of control our own fate, right? Running a motorsport team, an F1 team, building a theme park, running a school or prison, whatever those types of games. That's what we're going to be playing. So as the title suggests, and as you can see on your screen, we are doing F1 Manager 23 like we did last week. Solid title, having a lot of fun with it. Played a little bit in between the stream to make some progress and learn a little bit more about the game, the development. So to catch you up, if you were watching last week, we were playing McLaren, trying to get them back to their glory days. We finished the first season. That didn't happen on stream, but I did that again just to see what the transition period would like, learn a little bit more about it. We were able to hit our target, which was 7th place out of 10th for the team last season, which actually was kind of difficult to do with this team and the way that they've tweaked this game from 22. But we were able to do it. The goal for this year is to be in 6th. We've only had one race. But based on the results of that race, we actually are in 4th right now. Our second driver didn't get points, but we did get our better driver, Lando Norris. He actually was able to get up into 7th place for the race. Some things happened, of course. Different strategies at play, different car development, things like that, some incidents on track. So I don't know that that's going to be indicative of our real pace. If you look at the car comparison between the grid average, we're still below average, so presumably below 5th place. If we take a look at one of our rivals that was close to us last year and this year, you can see that we don't hold up against them either. So, it's just one of those things. The car developed a lot, but it still didn't put us up to the average or near some of our closest competitors, unfortunately. So what you can see is that I'm rapidly trying to develop at the onset of the season a lot of new parts. If you look at the cars themselves, we have you can see that we have versions 2 of a lot of parts already on the car. So we've done some development already. We're going to continue to do more. That's one thing that you'll see me shift with Season 2 and 3 is that in Season 1, I switch as early as humanly possible from developing parts, which is for the current year, into from developing current year parts into researching next year to give myself a boost towards year 2 and 3. But in the years 2 and 3 themselves, I maintain pretty steady development throughout so that we can actually be a little bit more competitive and unlock the true potential of that car. So that's kind of the distinction in F1 design and research for parts is that you got to be future thinking, researching next year's parts, but you also have to continue to work on the things for the current year. If you have a good car, especially, or a competitive one, and you have the opportunity to chase your competition, it makes sense to try and push. So right now, we're heading into second race weekend. I've already done the picking of all the performance targets and things like that. We got some things that are going to be developed throughout the race weekend, and actually one of the designs gets done in just 3 days. And once the weekend's over, we'll start manufacturing that part. So, of course, we can put it on, and depending on how quickly we can manufacture it, we might be able to even equip it for design done there, start production there, and possibly get the parts on at least one of the cars by the next race weekend. But for now, as always, it's race weekend. Time for us to head in.
We're here in Jeddah, where the tension is boiling as we head into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
This game, that's for sure. Okay, so you guys know the structure if you've been following along, but if not, race weekend, traditionally speaking, Friday, 2 practice sessions to learn about the car, get your setup right for the track, get data, see how the upgrades perform. Another practice session on Saturday, and then the 3 qualifying sessions if you're lucky enough to get through all 3. And then Sunday, race day. So as always, we have our little reference sheet for the setup information. This is, again, the specifics of the car being dialed in for the track that you're on. So that's one of the main things you need to test ahead of the first practice session. And if you wanted to do it straight up throughout the weekend, what you would do is you would find your starting points wherever you want to be. Maybe you have a reference sheet of what you've done before. Maybe you're using a guide online. Maybe you're just guessing. You would find your place on these little sliders. And then you'd send your car out and practice for a number of laps. The driver would report back how they feel about the car. The windows in those sliders would shrink. You'd dial it in more. They would shrink more when you send them out again, etc. Learning about the setup, learning about the car, learning about the new parts. I have a reference chart of some things that have worked before, and I like to stick with them. Because again, year after year, there are technical changes and yada, yada, yada. But the reality of a lot of these things is, they would change, but your car, you'd know how to set it up based on the track. You'd know that one prefers high speed, one prefers high downforce, one might be a balance of the two. So that's where you're going to look at these things, and for me, they would have historical information to go off of, so I don't need to dial them in. Now, I've talked about it before. I'm a big picture guy when it comes to these things. I don't necessarily need to look at every single turn, every single practice session. I just like to let the team do their thing. I take part in big picture strategy, big picture reactions, and then the development of the team and the car behind the race scenes. Those are the things that fascinate me as a person. Those are the things I care about in a game like this. So you're not going to see me control every practice session. You're not going to see me control every qualifying. There may be a time here or there where I jump in, weird weather, maybe a driver's in a way better position or our car's in a way better position on that particular track.
Welcome to qualifying. Let's find out if all that practice will pay off for the drivers.
So it's things like that. You can be as hands-on as you want to be. That's the beauty of management games, of simulator games. One of the big beauties of them is that you play how you want to play, right? You can go for the min-max perfection type. You can be the person who's pulling up Excel spreadsheets, extracting every bit of data humanly possible. You can do these things. You don't necessarily have to. You can kind of go step back a little bit and control some of the bigger picture stuff. So that's where I'm at. That's what I like to do. I think after this race weekend, we're going to start doing some swapping out of parts a little bit more to try and extend the longevity of the parts we have so we don't go over the cost cap with emergency buying like we did last year and things like that. Minimize the amount of penalties we have to take from changing parts. So the only thing we're going to change right now for their qualifying session is right now the current meta, and this is some of those things I do like to extract and perfect about the game. It's better to send them out on 2 flying laps instead of 1, 2 fast laps instead of 1. For whatever reason, just gets the tires into their better performing window, and you tend to have better results that way. So they both got their 2 qualifying results. They both have high setup ratings, but they like their car. They both have high confidence, which means that combined with the 2 flying lap thing, they should have the best possible performance they can get. Now, usually Alex gets disqualified after round 1, but he made the cut in round 2. And Lando would actually make the cut into Q3 if he repeats that type of performance. So that's huge for us. I don't count on making qualifying 3, which is the top 10, but it is possible with the way he's running. I just like to have at least one of my drivers in that 15 to 10 range, making qualifying 2, but maybe getting knocked out. So we got cars in qualifying too, which is huge. So now in order to make the computer actually do what it's supposed to do, I have to toggle some settings back, even though I shouldn't have to. Sometimes it ignores what you want them to do. If you don't toggle things, it's just one of those weird bugs you gotta be aware of. So now we got our settings right. Send them out again, qualifying 2. Alright, so Albon got eliminated in 15th, which is a great starting position for him in the car given our performance. Lando extracted every possible second he could, and he made the cut into the top 10. And same thing, just make sure the settings are right, toggle them on and off. Because again, for some reason, you just have to, in order for it to register right in between sessions. And we'll send him out for one last time. He's gotten 10th in the last 2. There's no reason to think he won't get 10th again. He got 9th. We're ahead of one of the Alpines. Actually, we're ahead of both Alpines, which is a great starting position. They'll probably take that back from us, because as we reviewed before heading into the race weekend, their car performance is actually higher than ours.
Well, there's nothing quite like it. Welcome along to race day.
Jeddah Street Circuit certainly makes the high speeds of F1 racing a thrilling affair. But even a world champion can be caught out in between the narrow walls, just as Max Verstappen found out in 2021.
Now, Karun, what do you think of Sergio Perez's performance coming into this race?
Oh, there's no doubt they'll be delighted to be at the front of the grid. It's a well-deserved pole.
Alright, so we got Checo up front. My boy. Very rare to see that happen, unfortunately, but... Alright, so now we're setting strategy. We're making sure every part is right and everything's dialed in before we start the actual race. So it looks like we can pull off a one-stopper, soft to hard, soft to medium, probably not doable, but we can check. It is doable. That's usually a faster strategy anyways. And we'll maximize the amount of time we spend on the softs since they're a better tire. So we got him coming in on lap 22. Lando can typically do a little bit better with his strategy. His tire management is a little bit better. So we'll aim to come in a lap later than him, lap 21, 22, 23. Yep. Same compound, same strategy, just one lap later than his teammate. And like I was saying last time, one of the things of this game is that the AI does use all available performance to start the race. So if you want to keep your position at the beginning or even possibly gain, you got to go aggressive out of the gate too. And that looks like going to driver options and maximizing their pace, which is how aggressive they are on tires. Fuel usage, which is how aggressive they are on the throttle. Brakes and ERS, we're pushing the electric battery backup. That comes in these hybrid engines, gives you a little bit, almost like using NOS would or turbo would be if you're watching like Fast and the Furious type movies. Just that little bit of boost, and then you can recharge it, which slows you down a little bit. We're going to go aggressive on all 3 of those things to start. So we're starting in 9th with Lando Norris and 15th with Alex Albon. It's a great starting position for our team.
Up on the grid here at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, preparing for 50 flat-out laps under the lights. We're now moments away from this, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It's lights out, and away we go.
Just pause it right off the bat. So in the settings here under ERS, you can use ERS Battle Assist. It won't matter while we're deployed, which is just actively using the battery power. But when they're not, when they're on normal usage, it allows them to be feel-free when they're competing, either defending a position or trying to take a position, to use that battery autonomously. It gives them a little extra help when they're in those battle situations. And then under tactics, currently, there is a thing here, avoid high-risk curbs. You can toggle, and it just doesn't really sacrifice performance presently as far as your time, but it does actually help you maintain your tire life and wear, so you could stay on a tire which is aggressive, like the softs. Maximum grip, maximum speed, compared to the other tires. Usually wears away a lot faster, but with this, it kind of just extends that life so you can go more aggressive for longer or run at a normal pace for longer, shorten the amount of time on the other tire, which is a little bit slower, and you'll have a faster stint, a longer, faster stint. And then again, if you know me, you know I like to run on about 4, 8, sometimes 16 speed. Again, big picture guy, I just like to react to some of the stuff that's happening. Sorry, real quick, let me... myself here because I'm blocking all the information on Lando. Okay, that'll work. All right, so we got all our settings right. Everybody's at their maximum performance and speed right now. And let's see what they do. So we're going to trail Lando instead of Albon, even though their default car won. Lando's in the better position, and he's our better driver. Just for some reason, with the way this team's set up, he's demarked as car 2 instead of car 1, which really neither here nor there in all honesty, but traditionally car 1 would be your number 1 driver. Alright, so after 1 lap, we shut off the ERS, the battery back up, we go to normal usage and let them use it as they need. And we'll run 2 laps with max fuel, but we don't, again, want to overdo it too hard. We got a whole race that we have to make it through, and we ideally would like to use some of it as we use our pit strategy as well. So we get through another lap. We set our fuel back to balanced usage. And then we'll just keep an eye on the soft tires. We'll let them run aggressive for another lap or 2. And then we're really going to pay close attention right here and right here to the actual wear versus the expected wear. Now, historically, like I mentioned...
We don't want to overcook the tires.
Yeah, come.
There's something to look at here. If you look at the car view and tires, see that they're all overheating. So while the wear is as expected, even on the aggressive strategy, we are overheating them, which will cause them to aggressively wear. So I'm just going to back off slightly and let it cool down a little bit. And this is the game I find myself playing right now, is using this strategy to avoid the high-risk curbs. Is aggressive for a few laps, cool it off for a few laps, aggressive with a few laps. There are certain tracks on which you can run aggressive tires and not burn out your tires for the whole stint using the avoid high-risk curbs tactic. But it's not every track right now. But you can see like we are doing very well with tire wear, at least as expected with these guys presently. So we got our tires cooler, so what I'll do is they come around this corner, start their next lap, we'll put them on attack again for a lap or 2. Maybe 3 or 4. And just keep an eye on that tire wear. Sorry, I got some kind of bug bite in my leg. I know I shouldn't be itching it, but I'm just going to town right now. So it feels so good when you itch, when you have a good itch like that, you know? It just makes it worse, but, you know, humans. It's like when you get a bruise and you just keep poking it. Alright, tires are cooking again, especially on Lando's car, so we'll back it off. It doesn't necessarily negatively impact your time or your performance, but it does chew through the tires. And again, we want to get as long of a life out of these tires as possible, because they're usually quicker than the medium tires. So ideally we want to be on them longer. Once we get both of our cars in the cool, we'll run another lap and then we'll put them on aggressive again. Now, considering we fired Oscar Piastri last season, we're going to want to go ahead and beat him in this race, and every time we see him. That's just the way it's got to be. Alright, so we'll do another stint on attack here for a few laps. We'll run a few more cooldown laps, and then when we hit the pit window, we can bump it back up again. Like I said, sometimes it's just about finding that balance between the two concepts. Performance, strategy, management, you know. You want to be aggressive at all times in racing, but at the same time, sometimes your car just isn't built for it, or certain tires just don't work as well for you. Yeah, so we ran a couple laps. We'll bring him back to standard, and we'll try and make it the rest of the way through our pit strategy. Stop scratching that. It's bad. Cool these tires down. Keep an eye on it. We're falling away from the top 10 a little bit, which is unfortunate. And we'll be coming up on our pit window real quick here. Next lap for Albon, we'll start the window. And then the lap after that, it'll start for Lando. We have him scheduled to do it one lap after his teammate. So keep an eye on Albon here as we get the message for Norris. Also entering his pit window. So he's about to start the lap before he pits. So we'll put him on attack and we'll put him on push with fuel. I'm going to go down to 4 speed to manage this a little better. Norris is going to come around for his penultimate lap as well. Same thing, put him on attack, put him on push. Albon, keep an eye as he comes through. Add the DRS to deploy. And now that he's crossed the line, we're going to tell him to pit for those medium tires. So he's on his in lap, which is going to be as fast as humanly possible to try and be in a good position compared to competition. And with Lando, he's finishing his penultimate lap, so same thing. We'll keep an eye on him as he approaches the final lap before he pits. So he's finishing that. Now we want to have him on full send. And as he crosses the line, get the pop-up telling us that it was our ideal lap as dictated by our strategy. So we also have him pit. As we go back out, you can see that Albon is doing his stop. He'll come out dead last. But if you look, the cars in front of him, for the most part, have not pitted, so he won't really lose too much, especially if he stays quick. Now, Lando is on his in-lap, his flyer. So max speed for him. And you got Albon on his outlap. So we're also going to keep all of his settings cranked. We want him again to go as fast as humanly possible, so he doesn't lose any positions unnecessarily.
Okay, copy.
So Albon finishing his out lap, put him in harvest for a lap or so to recover some of that battery charge. We'll back the fuel off, and we'll keep him on the attack for one more lap for his tire usage. Now Norris, same thing that Albon just did. He's in his out lap, so we're keeping him on an aggressive strategy to go as fast as humanly possible. And as he rounds it, we'll put him on harvest for a lap, back up his fuel usage as well, and we'll keep him on aggressive for one more lap.
So, recharge on. Confirm.
Albon's done a recharge lap for his battery, so we'll put him back on neutral. And we can see that his tires aren't aggressively cooked yet, so we'll go one more lap with him. And then Norris coming around his harvest lap. Put him back on neutral. And his tires are still good. Albon's overheated by a wide margin, so we'll back him off. And same thing with Norris. At the end of this lap, we'll back him off to cool the tires. And we'll let him drive normally for a while and see how the race plays out as the strategies unfurl. Still have a bunch of cars spread throughout the field who have not pitted, and that'll change things up. And then you'll see how the strategy plays out, undercuts versus overcuts, starting on harder tires versus starting on softer. One stop versus two stop is a possibility, although I predict most cars are just going to try and one stop. So now we're just in that awkward zone where we've played our strategy, and we're just going to drive our cars. As you can see, through a couple laps of normal usages, they're going to typically have some extra tire life in hand, which will allow us to kind of be in that aggressive cooldown strategy that I was employing at the beginning of the race. Virtual safety car. Looks like somebody crashed. Set all of our stuff to conserve, so we can come out aggressive at the end of it.
Virtual safety car. Delta positive.
Yes.
So it looks like Ocon crashed. Let's take a look at that real quick. Ooh. It's actually
What the was that, honestly? Oh.
both realistic and aggressive, which is fun. Yeah, Steve's not gonna like that. But he's out. Doesn't look like anyone else got a penalty for what happened. All the cars who had yet to pit on their strategy just got the bonus of basically what we would call a free stop. Because everybody's cars are slowed down in a virtual safety car, so that compared to going full speed and having to take a stop, everyone else around you is now going slower. When you take your stops, you lose less track position and time to your competition if you do make a pit under those conditions. And that's part of the reason that sometimes with your drivers, you will have them start on the worst tires and have them go long as humanly possible, fingers crossed, because some of these tracks, people are going to crash. It's almost a guarantee on certain tracks. And if you can play that into your strategy and you get lucky, then it's bully for you, man. It's just going to be game over for your competition. All the people who are pitting on this second lap or just pitted right before it are ultimately the losers in that whole strategy. These guys all got a free stop, essentially. Now, I have great tires and decent track position. I got a guy right on my butt. He, of course, can't pass me during the virtual safety car, which is a boost to me. Alright, so the virtual safety car is ending. I like to reset my things to neutral before it happens. And that window between the warning and it going green again.
BSC ending.
Yeah, copy.
I like to watch it at a closer speed so I can get the timing right for when it exactly goes green. And then now we flip everything into aggressive mode, much like we would for the start of a race. The race essentially just restarts. And we put them on an aggressive strategy for at least a lap. And of course, that allowed us to compete a little bit with any of the nearby competition. Now, Albon is kind of in no man's land. The guy behind him, 5 seconds back. He's 5 seconds behind the guy in front of him. But Norris has a guy right on his butt. And it's one of our primary competitions. And crucially, we're fighting for 10th place, which is the last points scoring position. It's critical that we get a point at any time we can. So, restart the race. Hopefully he can hold out. I doubt he will. That Alpine is a much better car than ours. Yeah, he's already lost it. But if he stays within a second of him, he'll get a boost with the DRS, allowing him to reduce drag and speed up in the straightaways. But even that might be hard considering the performance we saw in the first half of the race. The difference between those two cars was pretty steep. My tire life, despite having that VSC, is actually pretty much as expected, so I don't know how aggressive we can go on the tire strategy to the end of the race, but we're probably going to have some opportunities here. Just letting them cool down a little bit now. You can see they're starting to separate themselves from the expected usage. So, do what we did before. We'll have them go about 2 laps on aggressive usage, back off for a couple laps, so on and so forth. Just a strategy we're trying, but it gives them all the tools at their disposal to fight, especially Norris, who's actually in a battle, and Albon, who is probably soon to be in a battle with Valtteri. Oh yeah, you can see like our car, it seems to have improved from the season before. We're definitely running in better positions consistently so far. But we're not quite there to be consistently scoring points in every race or making huge strides over our opposition. Now that may come. We are developing several upgrades. We've already installed a few upgrades. That may push us over the edge into that realm that we want to be this season, but you got to remember, it's a future thinking as well. We're going to have to develop parts for the coming seasons as well, and when we switch over to that, we'll stop losing as much production on this year's car. If we split our focus too hard, next year's car might suck out of the gate. So it's really an intense discussion and thought process to go through. So we'll do another 2 laps or so on aggressive tires. Try and keep them in the points. Since we had to back off on fuel usage to make it to the end of the race. And we'll back them off for another lap or so in the hopes that we can have them just push it the last 3 or so laps to the end. Virtual safety car. We'll probably go through the end of the race, but we'll keep an eye on it. Conserve everything, so if there is a final push, we'll be ready for it. And
We've
if
got Ricciardo here in a spot of bother.
What happened? Oh, boy. It's quite the wreck.
And for the crew watching on in the garage, that really must have been a hard one to take.
We'll see if the virtual safety car ends at any point. Not confident that it will. If it doesn't, that's okay.
Virtual safety car. Delta positive. Recharge on.
2 laps to go.
Okay.
Safety car ending. So let's go ahead and pop these back into normal usage. Wait until it goes green.
BSC ending.
Try and get that timed right. There it is.
Pack is high.
Yes.
So Perez is on lap 49. Looks like he's just starting. Yeah, he's through like sector 1, I think. So we've got about a lap and a half. Well, for us, yeah, about a lap and a half. We want to go as hard as we can possibly go. The finish line, so we don't lose any positions, and we can take away at least 1 point. Now, it's most critical. Albon has a chance to get Tsunoda here, but it's most critical for
Okay,
Norris.
to close the gap.
Because he's got Gasly right
This
on
is
him,
the
and if he
last lap.
loses 10th, he loses a point.
Max Verstappen over the finish line and today's winner.
Just gotta keep that position.
Pack is low.
Yes, copy.
Oh, Elman got Sonoda. See if he
that's
can
a
keep
checkered
it.
flag. Well done.
10th and
We
12th
finished P10.
is a great
Well
result
managed.
considering how
Keep
bad
it
our
up.
team is
Good job.
and our car is.
And after the checkered flag has flown, there's Nico Hulkenberg.
Alright, so we lost a spot from our grid position, but we still came away with a point, and Albon made up 3 places from 15th to 12th. So he lost a spot to George Russell, who finished in a much better position this week. He's still 8th in the scoring, and as a team, we are still in 5th, and we need to be in 6th. So we're right where we need to be to start the season. Again, we have to take advantage of every opportunity to do well. And we're currently winning the Pit Stop Championship, which is like one of my favorite things that they added this year, is actually improving the ability to manage your pit crew and how they perform, how tired they get, what kind of regimen they're on. And then you can actually really get a deep dive of how well you're doing compared to other teams. So through 2 races, we've had faster pit stops than everybody else, which is a great feeling. Solid race weekend for us. Making about 4 million just on that race. Alright, so our sporting director, who was in charge of the pit crew, his overall rating went up, 89 to 90. We completed the design of our newest suspension, which means we can produce it. The S2 Suspension Series 2. And we'll go ahead and we'll go with a normal development. We'll get it on at least one of the cars before the next race, it looks like. So it's going to take 48 goddamn days to make 6 of those. The underfloor is almost done. The chassis is almost done. Oh, actually, the chassis are starting. So now we have an opportunity to design another part. So we could go with side pods. Yeah, let me back out, actually. It looked like I had saved some of my time. Alright, so everything has been researched already. We'll go with this because it's not a great part for our car already. We'll allocate our simulator hours, our tunnel hours. You can see the expected performance here. So you can see the expected rank on the overall grid will go up 2 in each of these categories on the new part if we design it the way we're looking at now. And we're just going to go with a balanced lifespan. You can sacrifice durability a little bit, but it takes off the... You'll have to replace them more often, which can get very pricey. But if we bring it down a little bit, you could add performance to another part on the car. And it makes you lighter too, which makes you faster in theory. But we're going to stick with balanced. It's not min-maxing, I'm just trying to get a handle on the overall development scheme and cycle of this game versus last year. We have 3 engineers we can use. We could try a rushed development. Adds about 700k, but knocks off 8 days. So the total research time. We still have $67 million on the cost cap. But if we do make a big investment in one of our facilities, which we probably should at some point. Now, we're still early in the season, so most of our powertrain parts are still doing well, and none of our original parts have broken yet, so we don't have to replace anything. Which is good, because our funds are actually really low after all the development we've been doing, but we want to be competitive. The whole reason we're here is to try and beat some other cars, and develop a car that can do that. Okay, so let's look at our calendar, see what we got coming up. We got some things that'll be produced between now and then, but nothing else will be done. So let's just jump ahead. Underfloor manufacturing is complete, which means the whole cycle is done, not just one of them. If I told them to build 6, that means all 6 have been built. We'll continue on as we head. We'll come up onto the next race weekend. So as we always have to do, we need to make sure we have 2 Travers in reserve, which we always do. The car build, though, is an interesting one that we want to check out because we have been developing parts. So what we want to do is we want to look and see, do we have enough to put any on our car? At least one, if not both. So I'm just going to put this on car 2 for now. We only have 1 backup, so if it crashes in practice or something, I can still replace it. And car 1, Alex Albon's car, he'll go without this update for now. The front wing, if we look, the newest one is the front wing 2. It's installed on both cars. Rear wing, same thing. Newest one is 2. It's on both cars. Side pods. Underfloor. And then the suspension was something else that we were developing. There's only 1 of them, so I could risk it and put it on car 2, which I think I will, because we want to extract as much performance as we can. So they all have the newest parts that they can possibly have on them right now. They'll have better/newer ones on in a little bit. Next race weekend, I imagine all the newest parts can be put on both cars. So one thing we're going to want to do, we hadn't really talked about last time, it didn't really come back to my memory banks that it needed to be done until a little later in last stream when we played F1 Manager, but it's ideal once you get a little bit aware on some of these parts. What you want to do is, you see here, you can swap out. Now this is the engine itself. There's 3 that you're allocated to make it through the whole season, right? Now, that's basically impossible, but you can employ some clever tactics. So we have one that's a little worn down. So what we can do is we'll leave these worn down parts on the car as we head into the race weekend, because the first thing that happened is the practice sessions, right? So we'll have these practice sessions, and we'll use these parts and we'll wear them down more, right? Then when we hit qualifying and race, we'll swap them into a new part so that they can perform at max efficiency without relying on these worn down ones. And we'll kind of loop that cycle for a few weekends until the ones that we use for the race get a little bit worn down, and then we'll do the cycle again with the newest ones. And it should slow down how frequently we need to buy an extra one, which not only costs money and goes against the cost cap, but more importantly, every time you buy more than the amount allocated, which is going to happen eventually, but every time you do it, you do get dinged. You do get dinged with a penalty on your grid position for the race following the swap, or during that race weekend if you swap them and buy a new part. So you also have to be clever about the usage so you minimize those penalties. But also, on the other end of the spectrum, you can kind of cleverly use penalties. Like, for instance, there's going to be a track where your car's not that good, and you can take a penalty voluntarily that weekend to be in better position for the next one. So that's a whole strategy in and of itself. As always, the last thing we need to do before we actually start a race weekend, we need to pick our targets. Now, our qualifying position that we can bet on would be, do we think we're going to qualify in at least 12th? Historically speaking, Lando is capable of doing that. And he has newer parts on his car, which will make him even faster. So we're going to assume that, and we'll assume Q2, which means they're going to be at least top 15. Now, the actual goal, the one that we can't change, is to reach Q3, meaning top 10. But I don't know if we'll get that. These are optional. But again, you look at the risk reward, we only possibly will lose 50k if we don't get this right. But if we get all three of those, that's almost $500,000 right there. Finish position is the chosen race target for us. They want us to finish in at least 12th. Now, that means if we were to try and choose a guarantee, it would be fastest lap. Realistically, we've almost never had the fastest lap of a race, so I never choose that when it's the option. But sometimes it's the chosen one, and then you can pick finish position as an option, and that's smart. And we've already chosen these. These are your streak targets. These are over multiple races, anywhere from 2 to 5 is basically what I've seen. But this one is chosen for us. Again, this one up here is not negotiable. It's what the sponsors want us to do. They want us to, for 2 races in a row, qualify in at least 14th, starting with this race. And then for 4 races in a row, finish at least 14th. We've already done that for the first 2 races. We've got to do it for the next 2, this one and the one after. So there's nothing else to choose here. So now that our cars, we've looked at all the parts, nothing needed to be replaced, and all the newest parts have been put on. We've picked our performance targets. It's time for us to, as always, go to the race weekend.
It's wonderful to be back down under for the Australian Grand Prix. We're a stone's throw from the beach here at the Albert Park Circuit. It might be party mood in the grandstands.
Don't see that every time. But yeah, standard race weekend structure. Again, F1's been trying new things with what they call sprint weekends, which kind of chops up the weekend into a different order. This is the traditional right now. So practice day, 2 practice sessions Friday, 1 on Saturday, then qualifying, then race as usual. So again, what we'll do, we'll put our reserve driver in for Albon. It only happens for the first practice session, but it gives him some experience, and it doesn't terribly negatively impact Alex. We'll consult our trusty charts for the setup for this weekend and put those in. Again, this doesn't guarantee us a perfect setup, but it's something that we've had luck with before, and we know will give us a good setup. So our drivers will be happy with the car for the weekend, which will increase their confidence. Not going to mess around with their driving options or their run plan. This is just for the practice sessions. We're just going to put in on these sliders where we want to be. Okay, so both drivers are set up, all the parts are right, we got a reserve in to get some experience this weekend, which is important, because if it is someone you want to actually develop into a potential driver for you, you gotta put them in every once in a while. In last year's game, that was actually a pretty good strategy you could employ, because it really didn't negatively impact your drivers if they didn't partake in practice, but you'd get a huge boost to your reserve driver if they did partake in practice. So in last year's game, 22, if you're playing that, you would put your reserve driver in for one of your drivers every single race weekend, give them that experience. By the end of the season, they would have gained a huge amount of experience. I don't do it every race because I'm not entirely sure if it works the same in 23, but you do need to put them in every once in a while so they get some experience during a race weekend, on top of the weekly experience gain that your facilities can give you. So we picked our setup, we picked our drivers, all the parts are installed. We'll have them simulate through the practice sessions. Again, reserve driver's only going to be in practice 1. Alex Albon, the real driver, he will be in there for practice sessions 2 and 3. And you can see their level of preparation isn't seriously impacted all that much by Alex having not been in practice 1. It just takes a little bit of a hit on the acclimatization right there. And their starting confidence is going to be pretty good. So Crofty was going to come in there and tell you what I'm about to tell you, which is that it's time for qualifying now. So things we want to do, again, we were talking about maintaining car parts, particularly the powertrain parts throughout the course of the year. We want to swap in a new engine for qualifying and race, a new ERS for qualifying and race, and a new gearbox. We're using the allocated sets, so we're not going to take a penalty right now. But what this ensures is that we have some beat up ones that we can use for practice, and then we have some nicer ones that we can roll out, and then that'll slow down the wear on all of the parts cumulatively, and we can take maybe just one of each part will have to be bought over the allocation instead of the 2 that we took last season. Compounds, obviously, they want to be on softs, fastest possible tires, and for our running plan again in this game, it is more competitive for you to run 2 flyers than it is just 1. For whatever reason, going out there for 2 back-to-back fast laps just performs better, presumably because it gets the tires in the operating window better than just 1. But that's the strategy you want to employ. So we'll do the same thing for Lando's car. Put on some new parts. And make sure that his strategy is set to 2 laps. And I don't include the cooldown in that. It's just back-to-back flyers to keep those tires warm. So they're ready to go. Simulate session 1. Again, I don't need to do every single session. I know what qualifying looks like. It doesn't really change the experience for me as far as results, whether I command them or not. So I trust in my overall big picture development and let them do their thing. So we have 12th and 15th. They both made it into qualifying 2. We, pursuant to the goals that we set out before, we need 12th in qualifying 2 as well. So hopefully one of them maintains that. Like I said, sometimes there's a glitch where if you go right into the next session, it doesn't stick with the plan you already had. So what I like to do is modify them and then modify them back. For some reason, that just works better. And I'll do the same thing over here. And then switch it back. It's particularly brutal when you're in session running, physically managing a qualifying, and they do their 2 qualifying. You send them out for the first time, they do the 2 laps we're talking about now. Then there's this weird bug, they come back into the pits, you set them up, you tell them to go do 2, you basically just put some fresh tires on, or maybe not even, you just reaffirm the same strategy. They go out, and guess what? They only do 1. And I've noticed it happens too in this situation as well, where you're setting up with the strategy for the next one. So I'd like to toggle them on and toggle them back off, and it usually registers what you want them to do. Now, they'll probably both be eliminated, but we got a fingers crossed that at least one of them's in 12th. They were not, so we didn't get our qualifying goal. We did maintain our streak goal of doing at least 14th. So not a total L. They made it to Q2, and we got our weekly qualifying streak goal, which is the bigger payout anyways, so...
The time has come to fight it out. It's race day.
Albert Park often seems to set teammate.
The race day here in Australia, qualified 14th and 15th. I think it's a little early in the season for there to be any grid penalties, so that's probably where we're actually going to start. Now for the sponsors, again, if we take a look here, we didn't reach Q3, and we didn't get 12th, but we did reach Q2, and we added another qualifying streak. It's not going to show up right now, but at the end of the weekend, you'll see that we got another 14th or higher in qualifying. Now we just got to, again, fingers crossed, we finished 14th for the streak, but ideally 12th for the weekly payout. All right, so strategy is our next conversation here. No rain in the forecast, so we're going to stick with dry tires. It looks like we can pull off a soft, hard one-stop, but the question becomes, can we pull off a soft medium? I think it's doable, and there's a very high likelihood of a safety car anyways, so this is the strategy I'm going to lock in. And fingers crossed that we'll be able to get a freebie at some point, or there'll be a VSC where we can save some of our tire life. And we'll do the same thing for Lando here. We'll go about as long as we can without falling below that complete fall-off level of 30% wear. So we'll be cutting it close on both runs, but we can manage. That's the whole point of the game, right? Alright, so we got them on their plans. Now, we've talked about this before, but again, at the beginning of the race, the AI runs full bore. So in order for you to not lose all of your positions, you have to do the same. And in some cases, if your car is aggressive or the timing is right, you might actually make up a few. So 14th and 15th, strategies are set. Out of the gate, driver options are set. We already had our car parts switched over to the better quality ones. So let's go racing.
The fans here in Melbourne are all set, as are the drivers, heading into 58 laps around Albert Park. Brace yourselves for the Australian Grand Prix.
Checo, another good start. Look at him.
It's lights out,
Way back there.
and away we go.
7th. Alright, so remember guys, we talked about this. If you're tuning in for the first time, it might be new to you, but a couple things I like to switch on and off right at the get-go. ERS, tactical approach, where you want to use battle assist. Again, we're starting off the race on full bore deploy, just using their battery backup down to get extra speed. But when I switch it back to normal, neutral, this allows them to autonomously use it in battle situations, either overtaking or defending. And then down here under driver tactics, by clicking on the little helmet, and then the driver, we want to avoid high-risk curbs. For whatever reason, this just grossly extends our tire wear, so we can be more aggressive more consistently throughout our stints without having the tires wear down as quickly. It's probably going to be addressed in the coming update, but for right now, that is a little bit of an exploit. It has varying levels of strength depending on the track you're on, so don't take that as like a holy Bible, run them on attack the whole time. But on some tracks, you absolutely can get away with running them on full bore with tire usage the whole stint. Some tires are just better than others too. That might not really help your tire life with the softs, but maybe the mediums more so, or the hards. So depending on your strategy too. But there are some ways for you to, like there is in any game, maximize performance without actually sacrificing anything. And that seems to be one of them in the current version of 23. And then again, if you know me, we're going to run it at 8 speed. Big picture is the way I like to drive and react to things. I don't like to control their usage on every turn. I don't like to see every single lap at 1 speed. I like to just be the shot caller for the overall strategy. Trust the drivers and the rest of the team to do their thing. And again, a hypothetical sense, just running the team. I'm not the strategy guy. I am not the pit crew engineer chief. Like, for me, simulator games mean big picture. So for me, it's all about big picture race strategy and then developing the car, developing the team and the facilities and the budget. That's what I love about this game. But again, you do you when you're playing. You can absolutely control both of your drivers on every lap, push them on certain corners, cool them on certain corners. Hey, welcome back, Tea Party. You've heard the same spiel from me about 1,000 times. I don't know why I like to treat my F1 Manager videos like their streams like they're tutorials for everybody, but that's just the way that I talk to myself in these games, I guess. When I was playing last week, avoid curbs to make my tires go too cold in the last couple races I was doing. Yeah, so interesting point to note, yes, it actually is so different on a track-by-track basis. On some tracks, it almost does nothing. Your tires will overheat, and the tires will still wear down at a basically normal rate. On most tracks, you get the added benefit of not really wearing them down, but they will still get too hot occasionally. On some tracks, though, you can run them on aggressive tire strategy, and their tires will actually get cold because that curb thing is so potent. They're not even getting into their hot zone or their neutral zone. So in some cases, I have had to, for a lap or two, turn that off. The tires start chewing a little bit more, but they get back into a better operating temperature. I turn them off until they get a little too hot. Then I put the avoid curbs tactic back on. It gets a little bit colder. And then the same thing on the tracks where they actually get too hot still, as you would expect them to. I just alternate between aggressive strategy or attack strategy and neutral strategy. Let the temperature drop back into the operating window, 2-3 laps, go aggressive for 2, 3, 4 laps, cycle back. So you just have to play it by ear. You know, it's kind of like you would expect in any management game. You have to react to the situation in front of you. On some strategies, it just doesn't work very well. And you have to just kind of run the race like you normally would. But for some tracks, it is absolutely a method that you can exploit. And, you know, like I was just mentioning, it's how you play these games too, right? If you got a little loophole or something that you can get away with, you're absolutely going to take advantage of that. You'll have to put up with a little bit of classic rock or soft classic rock for me because I've been watching Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. Great fucking show so far. We're knee deep in season 2 right now. My partner and myself, but Sting was one of the guest stars in the first season, and they featured a few of his songs. And now I've just been like obsessed with revisiting some Sting and the Police songs. So, but yeah, you can see like they're 5 laps in, about to be 6 full laps in. And what I like to do after several laps is just reevaluate and like look at what impact the high curb usage is having on this particular race. So I'm exceeding the targeted tire usage, which means I can actually survive this stint. We've had them on an aggressive strategy the whole time. They haven't overheated, but they're also not cold, like you were mentioning. That's not one of the tracks where that happens. So for another 2-3 laps, I'll let them go on that strategy and keep an eye on the temperatures, make sure they don't get too hot or too cold. But it looks like it's a track where we can get away with attack usage the whole time. Now, this is kind of the expected running position for our team. Unfortunately, the last 2 races, the tracks benefited our car, and we were able to do a little bit more, but it looks like we're going to be kind of hard capped on this track to about this range unless something happens to somebody in front of us, or, again, this high curb, or avoid dangerous curb usage, or whatever it's called, high-risk curbs, seems to be playing out for us, so maybe by extending this soft lifespan, we can successfully pull off an overcut. Because we'll be on a better tire than everyone coming out on mediums or hards. But that's about the only thing that we can hope for right now, is that a few people either wreck or our strategy ends up being better. And then, talking again about this tire strategy thing too, like, your drivers just have different skills at it. Alex chews through tires significantly more aggressively regardless of whatever strategy you put him on than Lando does, so his strategies, I have him typically coming in a lap or 2 before Norris if they happen to be on the same strategy. But we're letting them do their thing. Our pit window is 22 to 28, so we still get a few more laps before that kicks in. But you can see on that chart, this is a track that's beneficial to the strategy that I'm employing. He's actually got a significant margin now to the Delta tire usage. And we've been able to have him at attack speed the whole time, which puts us in a better position, especially if our car was actually more competitive. That would be a deciding thing against him and maybe the Alpines. After a few more updates, that could be a thing that actually separates those two teams, is the ability for us to exploit that running on full usage. I mean, if you look at... there's at least a yellow flag somewhere. So if you look at like tire usage, for instance, on softs, you compare to everyone else running softs. Lando, sorry, just checking something out here. Yeah, if you look at the tires that everyone has left, like, we have so much more on hand than even some of the medium runners, which is crazy. Excuse me. But yeah, if you're just coming back from that ad break, if you look at the tires, the level of wear, like, look at everyone on a soft right now. The best performing person has managed to still have 45% of their tire life. We have more than that on both of our drivers. And we actually have about the same tire wear as some of the mediums, which should go theoretically much longer than us. So now's where it gets a little interesting. We're in the pit window for both of our drivers. We actually had Norris expected to come in first, but the tire wear on Alex naturally is a little bit worse. So I think what we'll do is I'll have this be like a penultimate lap for Albon, slow down to 4-speed to manage the window a little bit better. We'll do Albon on a penultimate lap here, and as he comes around, we'll kick him on deploy. Norris will do a penultimate lap on this stint here. And for Albon, we'll have him come in. It'll actually be a lap early, but we'll also be able to extend the medium stint. So now we'll keep our eyes on Norris. He will probably pit on his expected lap, or I may have him go a lap longer. His tires are actually still looking really good. So I'll do a penultimate lap with him now, actually.
Pack is low.
Yes, copy.
So about 2 seconds flat for the stop time on Alex, which is nice. Then we'll have him do his outlap on a fully aggressive strategy. Norris coming around here, kicking the ERS, full deploy, and we'll send him in this lap for the mediums as well. Alright, so we got Alex fully done with his outlap, so let's recover some of his ERS. And we'll pull the battery or the fuel usage back as well. But again, with the high risk curb on, we should be able to leave him on attack strategy for tire usage. I'll keep an eye on that after a few more laps. Norris, we'll just keep an eye on him on this in lap. He still had some tire life in hand, honestly. We could have probably gone for another lap or two with how well he was managing them. Oh, thank God. And a 2-second flat stop meant that he came out in front of both Alphas, so that's good. He may not keep it, but that's good. Alright, so they're going to yell at us. Batteries empty. Alright, so Norris outlap will recover some of his ERS, pull his fuel usage back, and now that Albon's gone the recovery lap, we'll put his ERS back at neutral, and we can see that he's not overcooking or overusing tires yet, so we'll leave him on attack with that strategy. And we'll keep a close eye on Norris here, see if he stays in front. Even with the recovery on. Pull it off of him now so we can use it on the straight. Alright, yeah, so we have concluded our pit strategy for the race. And doesn't look like anyone's overusing tires yet, so we can keep them both on attack. Fuel's going to come back to us a little bit here, so we maybe have that as an option in our strategy as we get a little deeper in the race. But yeah, that's like I said, it's just one of those ways with this avoid high-risk curbs tactic right now for you to be able to continually run on an aggressive tire strategy and make up some pace compared to your competition without actually sacrificing your tire life, which opens up a lot of options for you. But yeah, even Albon, with how much harder he is on his tires than Norris, he will have plenty in hand by the end of this race. You'll see after a few more laps how big that gap gets between the Delta and where they're actually at. But like we were talking about a little while ago, our car isn't that great compared to our competition. So we're going to keep finding ourselves in a position where right now we're still going to be running in out of the points, unfortunately. We had a nice 2-point run. 2-race run, getting points. But it's a little out of reach right now, unfortunately. But again, strategy hasn't fully played out for everybody, and we'll have a lot more tire life in hand than some of our enemies. I mean, competition. Especially some of these guys who are already cooking their softs. Like, I have no idea how he's already made one stop. He must have put a used set of softs on. He's got to be on a 2-stopper. There's no way. But yeah, you can see some of these guys, you know, we may be okay, but I don't know if we're going to get a point. It's just upsetting. Safety car. What happened? Alright, let's pull it in. Save some of these things.
And it seems like Hulkenberg's had a bit of trouble.
Let's see what happens. Yeah, I noticed that Valtteri had a penalty.
And
Wasn't
just
sure
like
why.
that, the hopes of the team start to dwindle.
Most unfortunate.
And there's been quite a crash.
There's another crash. Oh no, boys. You hate to see it. You never do that. You just don't hit your teammate. So Stroll and Alonso both out after contact between the two Aston Martins. I could try pitting for a new set of tires. I'm gonna let the lap go a little bit longer to see where we would come out. It may not be worth it for us ultimately. Might be better for us to maintain position, but the guys behind us are gonna have fresh softs. But on the other end of the spectrum, I'm in 11th with Norris, and if I pit, he'll be 15th on the same tire as everyone else. So maybe we'll just take the track position and see if that works for us.
Safety car. Delta positive.
We're going to be the only ones on mediums.
Let's try and look after the tyre temperatures now.
Yep. It's probably going to be bad for us.
Yes, okay.
Alright, we'll just put this on blast and see if the safety car is coming in this lap. Probably not, considering there's two cars. It looks like they had to get off the track. Alright, so maybe this lap. Maybe this lap? Not this lap either? Okay. So for whatever reason, I like to pop all these back in neutral. It's just one of those psychological things for me, I think. Them readying for the reset.
Safety car ending this lap. You'll need to use overtake to get full deploy.
Yep, sure.
Alright, so we're all in a train behind Max. Safety cars come in. He's about to reset the race. So let's push. And see if we can keep up with all these people on fresh softs. Because we have put ourselves on something of an island here. Alright. See how it goes. Well, the song slaps and I won't hear otherwise. Alright, let's pull back the ERS a little bit, but we can probably run, well, we'll be able to run tire attack the whole time. Probably be able to run fuel attack the whole time, if we're being honest. We'll keep an eye on it. I don't know what Piastri did wrong there, but we actually... says Norris overtook Tsunoda, but no.
Here's the replay.
How long ago was
Right, let's have a look as we go into turn 4. It's there for the taking.
I think Tsunoda spun, so I overtook him by doing nothing. Yeah, Piastri right on my ass, which is frustrating because we fired him last season. There is a glitch with the names for drivers, especially if they come back into the game. So, like, for instance, there's a lot of people who have an issue in their first season. If they pull him back into the game, sometimes his name doesn't show up. In this particular case, the driver whose name's not showing up is actually Mick Schumacher. Got picked back up by AlphaTauri because for some reason Williams got Yuki. It was a little bit of a silly season that I caused by pulling Albon to McLaren. Piastri went to Williams. De Vries is completely gone now. If you pull someone from F2, it doesn't show up. Yeah, it's a weird glitch. I assume they'll fix that one pretty quickly. They have an update that's supposed to come at the end of the month and address some of these things. And they actually are looking, like we were talking earlier, at the strategy that we're employing right now with avoiding high-risk curbs and getting crazy tire life out of it. That is probably also going to be addressed. So we'll all have to go back to like normal strategies at some point soon. But yeah, it is a little bit of an anomaly when people come up back into F1. Tires too hot doesn't negatively impact performance, it only impacts life, so probably won't be too concerned about that. We've still put ourselves in a position to be able to chase points by the end of the race. Oh, wow. Yeah, 16 speed is a little bit much. They're starting to dip, actually, so let me back them off for a lap or two. Every time this comes on and it's not changes by Tupac, I get a little upset. Tupac. Let's take a look at the tire. Oh yeah, they're going to fall below 30 before they're. I think we're going to be able to mug them at the end. Their tires are going to fall off. So I'm actually going to keep our drivers. 4 laps left. I'll keep them on.
VSC deployed.
That does not help me.
And just try and stay on the Delta.
Yep.
It better end quick. Because I can't pass these guys right now. It's more than a yellow flag. Schumacher crashed. He's out.
There's a car in the wall.
I'm very, 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 very sorry.
It's nice that they still had audio from Mick from last year's game. Alright, VSC ending soon, please. Oh, thank God. I just need a chance. All I need is a chance to get past these couple cars.
VSC ending.
Yeah, confirm.
And there it is. Let's go get them. Set everything to max, and let's see what we can do by the end of the race here. Piastri at least has like no tires left. Got him. Got Magnussen. See if we can hold that until the end of the lap.
Max Verstappen over the finish line and today's winner.
Let's go.
Good job, lots of checkered flags. P9.
All right, nice job.
Well, that's a good job. Solid
Very
race.
good drive today from Lando Norris.
They really put in the hard work this weekend, and their reward is a well-deserved finish in the top 10.
So up 5 positions for Lando, from 14 to 9, and up 3 positions from 15 to 12 for Alex. That is a solid race. Now, obviously, a couple positions gained because of accidents ahead of us, but a couple gained on strategy, which is what we were hoping for. So that little avoided high-risk curb usage was actually going to help us strategize a little, and it did. Drivers-wise, we do lose another position to Lewis. Not going to cry over that because their car is definitely better, and he should be above me. But yeah, we got a top 10 runner right now, which is good. Alex still hasn't scored a point, but not surprised by that. And we lost another position down to 6th, but that is actually the season goal for Season 2 of our save file, is to stay 6th or higher, and right now, firmly in 6th. As long as Williams doesn't make any big jumps over us, we should be able to hold that down. And we've been dominating right now on the pit stop competition, which, again, I'll add is one of the coolest things I thought that they added to this year's game, was actually having a little bit more control over your pit crew, how they develop, and how good they can be. Because it just seemed really wonky every season. Like, in my previous one, it seemed like my pit crew just got worse and worse, and I had no way to do anything with them. So, really cool to see from 22 to 23 that they made an adjustment here. And actually added a little bit of a fun competition. I'm afraid to play my save file because I accidentally blew the cost cap by several million. Yeah, I'm a little ashamed to admit it myself. We were talking at the end of my last F1 Manager stream about how I didn't employ early enough in the season a strategy of using certain car parts for practice and having better ones for the race and qualifying. So I unfortunately did have to buy, I think, 2 extra by the end of the season of every part. And that, combined with a couple facility upgrades, put me well over the cost cap. I held my job, and I never actually lost money, but we did breach the cost cap, and it did. They fine us. It seems like in this game they fine you an equivalent amount to whatever you go over. So if you blow the cost cap by, say, $3 million, you get fined $3 million. So an extra $3 million hit on your overall funds. Which, again, for most people, as long as you're not going crazy ham, is fine. Alright, so... main drivers all had really good sessions. And the reserve driver, kind of expected, a little bit behind them. Oh, Baku. It's one of my favorite tracks. Coming up next. Love that for me. Just going to try to wait out this ad break for anyone who's going through it real quick before I get into anything major here. 2, 1. Alright, so if you're coming back from that ad break, just finished up our 3rd race, prepping for the 4th. I have like 4 races left, and I needed to get like 2 powertrain parts, even though I thought I managed swapping parts pretty well. Like I said, it's just a ding you have to take at some point, but hopefully with all the things we now know and some of the practice we've gotten, we can maybe avoid it being as bad as cost cap breaking, but we'll see. I do like to live dangerously a little bit. So this will be the first time where we've had anything actually fail inspection and parts, normal parts that need to be replaced. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at the cars. We're all good there. We're going to switch these back to the worn ones for next race's practice sessions. Alright, and then on car 2, we'll do the same thing. Put the worn parts back on for practice. And we will swap out the front wing. I'm just going to go ahead and build a couple more. I straight up have to. That is not a car part that you want in low quantity, considering the frequency with which they break naturally and in the race. Alright, so both cars have passable parts, and they have reverted back to the last powertrain. My winning, son? Yeah, I guess where that we want to be, which is not winning, but not sucking either, I guess. We've had some good races, some good strategy. Alright, so looking at our calendar, we have a couple week break before the next race. We've got a few designs that we'll finish up, which means we'll be producing some new parts here shortly. I'm winning Valorant, but I'm not doing good and resorting to insults and violence again. Sounds like Valorant. I feel you though, what you're talking about the other day, man. It's like feast or famine with Valorant. Like, I feel like there's rounds where I'm getting really good at that game, and then there's rounds where I'm like, no, you're literally trash, and you'll always be trash. And almost nothing in the middle. Alright, we'll fast forward a little bit. Finish that extra front wing part production that we just did. You can see we got a chassis design that'll finish in a day. And that'll be the C3, so we'll stop production on the C2. Because we are going to need to make that one. Okay, so fast forward. Like we said, chassis design complete, so we'll go ahead and produce it. Got like 6 of those bitches ready. Alright, looking at the calendar, nothing coming up right away. Alright, let's see some of these things. Yeah, I mean, you can see in this email recap here, the car development comparison, car 1 performance rated against the other 19 cars. Well, there's 20 total. So 14th, 18th, 19th, 18th, 15th, 13th, 15th, 15th, 13th, 19th, 15th. Again, it's a real bummer for me to read that. We talked about on the last stream developing, well, researching so heavily for this specific season ahead of time, still having a car that bad. I don't know what we did wrong, but again, still learning this game's mechanics versus last year's, so board confidence, they still have high confidence because we're on track in all of the metrics. Driver development, you can see our drivers slowly over time, even in between races, we'll get better at things. Lando has some really good stats on him. Within a few seasons, he'll be one of the highest ranked drivers on the grid. And Alex has some solid progression, but nothing incredible. So also at the beginning of every month, you set the pit crew training, which is what we were just talking about at the end of the last race. We actually have a little bit of control over that in 23. You can see where the expected, where you are now, and then the expected results, depending on your training. So no matter what, we're going to be up On fatigue, we're going to move into the tired realm, which increases the chance of a mistake, but very marginally, because we're not going into the deep. But this keeps us on the same training cycle we've been on, and that training cycle has resulted in being the best pit crew in F1 right now, so presumably we'll stay there. We've got a couple people we need to re-sign, but we'll wait a little bit, so there's some extra money in the budget for that. But again, nothing to do right now. Another design complete in a little while, so we'll have some more parts to build, and be heading towards another research cycle as well soon, so. Complete front wing sooner. I would like to put more resources towards the front wing project in order to complete it sooner. We will need to pay some overtime, which will come out of the cost cap, but I think that developing our car faster is worth it. Please find a report on the change. So it's going to increase by 9 days. April 6th instead of the 15th. So right now it's expected to be completed here. It would be completed here if we do that. I'm actually good with that. That's a solid chunk of money, though. But again, another thing that I've been really happy with in 23 is that stuff like this pops up. Real-life things get better, things get worse. Someone has a clever idea, you can implement it or not. So we got a rear wing design complete, which means we can produce that. And we'll make like 6 of those bitches as well. Now the only challenging thing here will be we have 2 design projects going that wrap up soon, but 3 production already going that don't wrap up for quite a while. So we'll have some new parts designed, but we won't be able to make or implement them for a little while, which kind of sucks. So forward looking again on the calendar, one of the next things is right here, Sunday the 8th. That is a regulations vote for new regulations. That is a big mark for the season as a whole, because once those regulations are announced here, the research window opens for next year's parts, now that we know what the regulation changes are going to look like. So we can start, just like we did last season, researching things for next season's car. And unlike last year, basically, last season we instantly switched into research mode from design mode. We stopped worrying about the current car, and we only focused on the future car. But this season, since we want to and need to be more competitive than last season, what we'll have to do is split our resources between research and design for a while, and then eventually switch to just research. So now, like we were talking about, the regulation vote has come up. This year we're voting on minor technical changes, so it won't heavily impact no matter what it does. But what you can see is there's 2 options to focus on: either airflow reduction, like nerfing those parts a little bit, or cooling focus changes and nerfing those a little bit. And that's an interesting one. So what we want to do is we want to look at our car analysis here. And we can just look at the grid average, but we can look at the rank on the grid, and we can look at cooling. And we're 19th, 15th in brake, engine cooling, and weight. So if we go back and look at the voting, on the cooling front, nerfing that heavier makes sense to vote for because we already suck at it. So it doesn't nerf the things we're good at. It nerfs the things we already suck at a little bit. So I'm going to vote for cooling changes. Doesn't mean it's going to win. It is a vote amongst the AI. Chassis 2, low stock. Yeah, that's fine because we're currently building 3. So again, looking at our calendar, we'll see that our last design project is finishing there. So what we could do is I want to wait until that's done, first of all. And then we'll go into where they announce the results. So we voted on cooling changes, which is what we wanted. So that worked for us. So we got what we wanted out of that, which is kind of nice. And the research period begins now. So what we could do if we wanted to is research some of the parts that affect cooling a little bit more. Side pods. We don't have any more hours in this cycle period to test it. It's marginal. But the hope for this research would be that it's done pretty quickly. Guess we get some hours back soon. Okay. So put a couple research things in the queue for next season. And again, try to wrap them up pretty quick. And then we'll save some more design for a week or two from now, where you can see the next testing period starts and we get some more hours to play with in the simulators and the wind tunnels. Those are the things that make real impact on the parts that you're researching and designing, and right now we don't have any to spare, so the parts that we're working on aren't going to be as good as they should be. Alright, so we're finally back on a race weekend, which means we got a couple things we need to do. So we want to look at the builds of these cars first and foremost. I do it from the warehouse. We have a chassis 3. And I'll put that on car 2, we'll put the other one on car 1, so they both get an upgrade this weekend. One's just lagging a little behind the other. As the rest of these get built and we have more to spare, we can put it on both cars and risk it. But there's only 2 of these made right now, which means if one of them crashes, I have nothing to replace it. And pursuant to the rules of the game, you have to replace it with the same model. Now, we could emergency buy them. It costs a ton of money from the cost cap, though. So we're just going to play smarter, not harder, when it comes to this right now. But we got the newest chassis as much as possible installed. The new front wing is not ready yet, but we have that one on. Rear wing, you can put the newest one on both cars. Side pods, they have the newest one already. Underfloor is not made yet, so they have the current newest one. And same thing, suspension, there's enough now that we can put it on both cars. And they can have the same spec. And we've already changed our engines. We did that at the end of the last race. We put the powertrain parts back to the worn down ones. So last thing we can do before we actually go racing is pick our performance targets. For qualifying, do I think we can get 12th? Maybe. Do I think we can reach top 15 and make it into Q2? Yes. For race targets, again, when they have the one chosen for you as fastest lap, that means the other one will be finished position. In this case, do I think I can finish 12th? Yes. Potential reward for both of these would be 307k. Most of that is from this one, which we're not going to get the fastest lap, but we can get 108 from that. 119 from that. And then again, qualifying streak, this race and the next, do you think we can qualify 14th or above? 2 races in a row. Finishing off a 4-race streak, can we this race finish in at least 14th, which will pay out almost $1 million. Alright, so everything is set for us to launch into the race weekend.
Greetings from Azerbaijan. where we're back in the country's capital. The spectacular Baku City Circuit will take drivers right through the city streets, from the narrow roads of the Old Town to the wide highway alongside the Caspian Sea, where cars will be fighting wheel to wheel this weekend. Baku City Circuit challenges drivers like few other tracks. The tight section through the Old City demands precision. The main straight, pure aggressive acceleration. And every corner is a challenge for tyres.
Try me easy. Oh, this is a cover. Alright, so as always, setting up our car for the practice sessions. As we talked about, we put the more worn engine parts on so we don't have to use the good ones. You're gonna gotta change the setup. We'll consult our trusty dusty chart of things that have worked in the past. And make sure we got the best possible setup. Again, it won't be perfect, but it'll be a good one. It adds to their confidence and it adds to the overall speed. Same thing, got the worn engine parts, and we'll dial in the setup. Okay. We have some limited parts put on our car from upgrades, so I don't want to risk a crash, so I'm not going to put my reserve in this weekend. So we'll go out, we'll simulate the practice session. It's also a sprint race, which means the weekend's chopped up, and you only get one practice session in before you qualify. So you want to have both of your drivers in there as well. Both of your current actual drivers. It's like Sunday morning. Okay. So again, the confidence you'll see isn't as high as before, but that's because instead of having 3 practice sessions under their belt before qualifying, they only get 1 in the sprint format. And for those who haven't followed along or don't know really what I'm talking about, on sprint format weekends for the game, the way they handle it especially, you get 1 practice session. Then you do your traditional qualifying. That determines your start in this for the sprint race. Then on Saturday, you get a 2nd practice session to dial in the car more. Then you get the sprint, which is just a very short race, essentially. And then you have the results from that determining the order for the race. And then, of course, you just race, like you would post-qualifying in that order. Okay, so time for qualifying. A couple things we're going to have to do here. Car parts, we're going to want to put on the better ones that we had used last week. And we're also going to want to make sure we're doing 2 flying laps, because that is the preferred strategy in this game. So just like car 1, newer parts because it is a qualifying session. And then 2 flying laps for Lando as well. Now they're ready for qualifying. Simulate session by session as we usually do. Lando fucked up, which is very uncommon for him. But he got 19th and is eliminated. Albon up in 12th, which would be ideal, but I don't think he'll keep that in qualifying too. So again, I like to toggle these and then re-toggle them because sometimes it doesn't save those things in between the 2 sessions. Simulate the second one and see what position Albon gets into. 14th, which, again, it hits our overall targets, but not the specific this week target of 12th that we wanted. But that's okay, because that was important for maintaining our weekly streak. Our week-to-week streak. Now we get another practice session, and I'll be kind of anal about it, but we'll put back on the practice parts. We don't need to change anything about the setup. So since it's a practice session, put on the more worn parts, save the nicer one like we've been talking about. Don't need to change anything else right now. Send them out for practice 2. So as you can see, Lando should probably have qualified something more like 8 to 12. But I don't know what happened to him in that session, but he fucked up and got 19th. But that's where we're at now. Their confidence will go up a little bit from that first practice session. And now, like we were talking about, it'll be time for the sprint race, which is effectively just a different type of qualifying. It's a little more entertaining because it's actually a race. But it depends on how much of a traditional view you take on F1 and some of these changes. And like, qualifying is exciting because there's certain drivers out there who are just built different, and over one lap can drive like madmen and extract every ounce of speed possible from that car and just set these ludicrous times to get pole position or high up the grid. And then there's people who prefer that. They see that as some of the pinnacle of motorsport, your ability to just dominate over one lap and be the fastest out there. But then there's also the true racing element of it as well. Your ability to manage tires and defend and overtake and fight fairly against your peers. And this is kind of a little bit of both worlds, because you kind of have to have that one lap pace, but for 17 laps, while also using all your racing smarts and extracting what the car can do. So sprint is very cool, but it's a very polarizing and divisive subject in the F1 community.
Our sprint today sees the drivers take on 17 laps of the Baku City circuit.
Expect to see plenty making the most.
Now's the time for the sprint here in Baku. And it's lights out, and away we go.
It's the same thing as we always talk about, changing the ERS tactics to include battle assist, and then avoiding high-risk curbs to maintain tire life a little bit better when running in an attack strategy. So, let's see what happens. We got Albon up in 14th. Norris started at the back down in 19th. And, unfortunately for him, against one of his actual competitors, Magnussen in the Haas. So 1 lap in, we'll pull back ERS to neutral usage. And 2 laps in, we'll pull back fuel usage so they can actually make it the length of the sprint. And we'll keep an eye on our tires, but there should be no risk of them falling off, even on the aggressive strategy. But we'll see. Nothing to do but keep an eye on it at this point. And you just gotta hope that Norris can do something at some point. But he's about to fall a second behind him, so I don't know. Might be stuck in P20 for this one, unfortunately. So we got 5 laps in, so we can look and see. We're pretty much at our delta, even running in the high usage, so should be very good. Really nothing terribly exciting happening here. Albon has lost and gained the same position multiple times. Same with Norris. It's definitely a case of haves and have-nots in this F1 season, like how far back these packs are, depending on where they are in their development cycles. But yeah, it's Lando did us no favors this weekend, qualifying in 19th. Yeah, so no safety car, no VSCs, nothing yet. And probably won't. In real life, there's a little bit of aggression in the sprint. You always want to win, and you want to maximize the amount of points you get and where you're going to start in the race. But at the same token, like, it's not the race, and wrecking your car here could wreck your whole weekend, so... A lot of people will play it safer in real life in a sprint weekend than you might hope, and that's another argument against it for the people who don't like sprints. So it doesn't inherently push people to go to their limits, because you wreck it here, you might wreck your whole weekend. Only for a moment, and the moment's gone. So we've made some progress with both of them. They've advanced a little bit, which will help their starting position in the actual race, of course. Alright, last lap. Let's throw ERS in the mix. Don't have enough fuel usage to add that in, but at least we can give them a little extra boost to try and make the best position possible. Add fuel to it and see if they can at this point in the lap.
Leclerc. Charles Leclerc is today's winner.
Nice. Good job, buddy. So from 14th and 19th to 13th and 14th. A bad day for Norris, up 5 positions. Okay. Stroll, because he crashed out of the last race, never actually served his penalty for crashing into his teammate, so he'll actually have a grid position penalty this weekend.
Welcome to race day. And before
Race day. Alright, so like we said, that is indicative of our positions, and then with Stroll serving a grid penalty, we actually move up 1, so we're in an even better position now. This is where we should have started the sprint. Alright, so strategy... Soft medium is probably going to be the play. So we'll make his pit on lap 25 in the strategy for Lando. We'll go a little longer. It looks like we can make that work, and then if you add the high-risk curb thing into the mix, it gets even better. And as a reminder, starting out fully aggressive to keep up with the AI, which does the same thing. So we got our strategy, we got our car parts, we have our driving strategy picked.
final checks are being carried out on the grid, and it won't be long until we get underway. The calm composure of Sergio Perez amongst the hustle and bustle of the grid. This is what you've been waiting for. It's the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Alright, so just like we did for the sprint and last race, give them battle assist on their ERS and tell them to avoid high-risk curbs. Alright. Let's see what we can get out of this weekend, guys. I'm just gonna kind of be a dick, unfortunately, and tell him not to fight his teammate. I didn't want that drama of them hitting each other, possibly. But then on top of that, Norris is the guy who actually scores points and has them on his record. So it makes sense to prioritize him. Unfortunately, not everyone agrees with team orders, but I think I had to do it in this case. Oh boy, we forgot to turn off ERS. I'll spend a lap or so harvesting. And we'll back off on fuel as well. Tires are going to get a little too hot, driving aggressive, but the wear looks good. So we'll keep them on the attack strategy.
It's low.
I know, bro. I know. You're like a lap too late. So yeah, we'll do a little recovery for like a lap and a half, 2 laps on the ERS, because we did kind of screw that up. And at the end of this lap, we'll put it back to neutral for both guys. And we'll back off on tires for a lap or 2, just to let the tires cool again. Even though, like I said, the wear is good. You can see that we're still maintaining better than all of our peers. So you can see, if you do deep dive and you want to, using this high-risk curb tactic, which on some races will have you still overheating your tires, on most not, and on very few you'll actually go too cold. But you can see that the tire performance is up right now, the wear rate is not being affected, it's in the optimal range, which is between 70 and 120, so that if we do put them on the attack strategy, we just want to keep them below 120, basically. Which is something we can manually keep an eye on. Oh, I see. That isn't the top. Okay. Making that more heads or tails over here. That is not actually the whole window. So back them off a little bit. Cool them for another lap or 2, and we'll keep this cycle up. And that should keep them at their delta as well. Even though we're using all these aggressive laps and getting into an overheating zone, that tactic is still allowing us to stay around our delta, which should keep us on our pit schedule overall. Possibly even extend, or give us the option for an undercut. Alright, so they've gone down a bit, so now we'll bring them back up a bit. About halfway to our pit window. It's an aggressive strategy. Starting to overheat a little bit, so back them off. And we'll piss Albon off a little bit, tell him not to fight his teammate. Again, not everyone likes team orders, but I think it's important. That the guy who actually is carrying us, hard carrying us in the championship, stay ahead. Put them back on their aggressive tires.
There's a car in the wall. So there is a lot of debris and the car's still on the left-hand side. So I would stay to the far right. Stay to the far right.
Chiquito, what'd you do, buddy? I don't know why you gotta be like this, man. We got them on the aggressive strategy again. Which means they'll overheat very shortly. Back them off, and we'll continue that cycle for a little while. At least until we pit and put on new tires, and then that will change things up a bit. So walked along. Streets of Cobblestone. Absolute banger of a tune. Cold and down. Alright, back on the strat for a bit. Some people, maybe more. Coming up on the pit window. Coming up on pit window. So we'll back them off for a lap or so. Albon in the pit window. Slow this down a little bit. Keep a closer eye on things as we're in the window for both of them shortly. Norris also in the pit window. So Albon's supposed to pit next lap. So put him on increased tire and fuel usage. To the neon goddamn. And now we'll throw the ERS on. And have him pit for the mediums on this lap. Norris's tires are still in incredible shape, so I may have him go another lap or two before I pit, try and overcut, which is usually the worst strategy, but to me it stands to reason that if you can stay on the faster tire, you should stay on the faster tire. Alright, Albon in for his pit. Great time. As usual for our team. We'll have him do an outlap. I'm gonna put Norris on aggressive tire for a second here.
Pack is low. Yep, copy.
Back him off again. This is his optimal lap, so we'll go for another lap or two. His tires look great still. Train never coming back. Albon is finishing outlet. We'll put him on recovery for ERS, and we'll stop the fuel, and we'll keep an eye on the aggressive tires. So we switch our focus back to the north. Alright, I'm going to put him on attack strategy now for tires. Then we'll do a lap of full fuel and tire attack, and then we'll pit. And then Albon will be finishing his recovery lap. So we'll put him on neutral ERS. He's already back on fuel and his tires still look good. And then on the next lap we'll have Lando pit. But not before we put his ERS on the long straight. And now we'll tell him to box for new mediums. And then you just want to keep an eye on Albon's tire temperatures. He's had a few laps now, several laps straight actually, where he has been on full attack on the mediums and they have yet to overheat. So we just want to keep an eye on if they will or won't. So if they do, then we know we got to dial in the strategy on a more lap-to-lap basis like we did with the softs. If they don't, then we know that we can just let them be and run aggressive the whole time. Got Norris on his outlap. Still some people ahead who haven't pitted, so he should be in a pretty good position once the strategies resolve themselves a little bit. But he's on his outlap, so we'll leave him on max push. Put him back on, put him on harvest for like half a lap. Pull back on fuel. And we'll put him back on neutral in a second here. Once he gets a little extra in there. Alright, so Albon is overheating a little bit, so we're going to back him off. I don't know if we're going to play Baldur's Gate today, brother, to be honest with you. I have to still do a little bit of my programming course. I'm still like a lesson or so behind, which is not a big deal. It is technically part-time. There's no gun to my head to do it in any specific rush, but there is a kind of a dictated schedule. I'm a little behind, but more importantly, because everybody who runs that damn thing is on the West Coast, I have my first mentor meeting one-on-one with my mentor tonight, and that's at like 9:30 p.m., so I'll probably be practicing coding until that meeting and then meet with him. So this might be one of the few days this week where I can't squeeze that in. But I'll let you know, depending. Once I get done with the stream and then dinner, there may be a window of time where I can get it in. Lord knows I am obsessed with that game right now, so. Alright, so Albon wasn't able to successfully stay on attack, even with the high-risk curb thing. I don't know if you've been listening to me at all, but probably not happening. It won't be after that meeting, I'm telling you that. It's literally at like 9:30. How can we let it slip away? I stream 1:30 to 5:30 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. So in the evening I would typically be free. I plan on doing most of my coding course before streams. So it should free up the evening for more casual gaming. Word. I'll let you know. We can figure it out. Oof. Trying to catch a bunch of people. Oh, still get a pit. We may be in a position to try and pip some points, but it's going to require a little bit of luck and that our strategy played off. The highest I can keep any of my drivers on, if I feel lazy and don't want to control them, is aggressive. Attack seems to be too aggressive from a temperature standpoint. Yeah, no one's tires are gonna fall off a cliff, so we'd have to hope for a major mistake in front of us in order to get a point. Which kind of sucks. Well, we just seem to be catching up to Gasly pretty nicely. See what happens if we throw a little fuel boost in the mix. There we go. Tires, he on mediums? Should have put a second on them before we get to the DRS zones. There we go. I might even be able to get Sonoda and the Williams there. There we go. That's my boy. Making up for that abysmal qualifying he had. There we go. Whoops, sorry, Alex. It's not keeping close enough eye on your fuel usage. Probably going to be hard for him to keep Stroll behind. That Aston Martin is way better than our McLaren right now. Last lap on what ended up being a great day for Lando. As long as he brings it across the line in one piece here. Ninth!
Okay, Lando, good job. Let's check it back.
Let's go.
Danny finished ninth.
Awesome job.
Nope.
Good job, everyone.
No, Danny. That is some recycled audio. That is abysmal. Frontier, get your shit together.
Now that's a performance that really shows what the McLaren driver can do.
Well, take nothing away from it. Finishing in the top 10 to take home some decent points is a...
Yeah, and importantly, we pushed Williams behind us, which increases the gap over them. Yeah, so Albon lost a spot overall, but not surprising because he was a little out of position, historically based, speaking. And then Lando up 4 positions to where he should probably just be at this point. But yeah, he continues to fall in the overall order to people who are a little superior to him, and cars that are superior to him. He's got a nice haul of points, and he's keeping us in 6th, which is exactly where we need to be. And we have a nice gap over Williams, but one weird, wonky race could throw that whole thing. And Red Bull's pit stops were nowhere this week, apparently, so we're going to open up the gap nicely. Well, actually, they're not even in second anymore. They were dominating from a pit stop perspective last year, and for some reason, this year they're way down in third. But we continue to have a nice lead in the pit stop championships. I do love that that is an element of this season. Well, this game, I mean, 23 versus 22. Yeah, they had a solid weekend. There's no other way to put it. Really, especially outstanding recovery from Lando. Qualified 19th, made up like 6 spots in the sprint race, and then made up like 4 more spots in the race to get a decent haul of points, which earned us some decent money as well. And we need it, because we've been spending on this car this year. Okay, so we just completed a manufacture on a rear wing, but I know for a fact we've developed some things we ain't built yet, so we can use that free manufacture spot. We don't have a new front wing in development, and we have designed a new front wing, so let's make bunch of those. Rushing it doesn't add a crazy amount to cost, but does shave a week off the overall production, so F it. Let's go for it. It's the damn chassis, man. You really don't want to be making those if more than you have to. Alright, so that'll be done in 6 days, and then we can make more of the things we've designed. So with the cars, nothing failed inspection after the race, so nothing to replace. And then just as a reminder to ourselves for next time, we're going to put on the worst powertrain parts for the practice sessions for the next race. So we can save on the overall powertrain we use throughout the season. Maybe save us a cost cap issue like we had last season, or possibly have some grid penalties as well. Alright, so that was car 2. Did I already do both? Good. Brain is not working today, apparently. It looks like they are switched out. Okay. Let's get another race in 4 days, it looks like. Let's take a look at the calendar. Anything exciting happening between now and then? Not particularly. But starting after that race weekend, we have some more wind tunnel hours and things that we can screw with. And as far as developing next year's car and continuing to develop this year's car. We have some research already underway for next year, but we do still need to push this year's development, so we stay in 6th place over Williams, who do appear to be surging a little bit. But all in all, I think that's a good spot to take my break. I need to get some water and stretch the legs, so I will be back in a few minutes, and I'll see you guys in a sec. Yeah, guys, welcome back. As you can see, I'm changing it up as much as I love and am definitely a bit addicted to the F1 Manager title. It's Manager Monday, which means it's going to be any sort of simulator management game, regardless if it's racing or not. So what we've got here is something I've never played before, so it'll be a completely new experience to me and probably to a lot of you guys, I would imagine. It's called Let's School. Puts you in the shoes of, I believe, a superintendent or a principal, tasked with basically turning a school around. Is the gist I got from it. Very highly reviewed and rated on Steam, so they recently had a sale on simulator, strategy, cozy type games. And I figured I'd cop up a couple of them just to add to my repertoire for the Manager Mondays. So, without further ado, this is called Let's School. Again, it's completely new to me. I have no idea what I'm doing, so we're just going to dive right in. Sure. Default town, default difficulty. Oh, I see. We can set some things here, but I don't know. Probably best to just go right into it. Letter from old headmaster. Hey, long time no see. I'm the headmaster of your old school. By the time you read this, I will be retired and traveling the world. The school you loved is in a bad state. I tried my best. My best wasn't good enough. Now it's up to you. I'm asking you to take over the headmaster position. Please do what I only dreamt of doing. I've hidden a treasure somewhere in the school grounds. If you revive our school, the treasure is yours. Okay. All right, so. Mang. Headmaster Mang, they will call me. Let's see. I'm just going to say I can't have a beard. Glasses or beard. Headmaster dresses like that. What is that? Like a little bit more casual. Full suit. Yeah, we need a school name, guys. I don't know. Yeah, did mention being hooked on Only Murders in the Building. It's set in a building called the Arconia, so it'll be the Arconia Academy. Interesting. Let's see. color one having any effect on this. Like, at all? Am I crazy? Am I just imagining this? Sure. So sure. Solid animations. Let's go. Oh yeah, she's seen better days. That's for sure. We should switch this up. That's for sure. Am I the new headmaster? Sure am, buddy. Miss Lynn, my assistant. Yeah, Miss Lynn, what do you got for me? Feel free to ask me for help if you encounter any difficulties. I may not have a lot of experience, but I do my best. I do need help. Right mouse or Wes, that looks like. Q, I need to rotate. R goes up. F goes down. Do you get up there? I don't even see stairs. Headmaster's Manual. Education. First, we must first admit students from all the communities around us and satisfy their needs. 2, have the students attend classes so that they gain knowledge points. 3, throughout the week, teach the students so that they pass the exam for their preferred course types at the end of the week. When the students pass the exams, school gains contribution points, which can be used to further improve the school. You can increase the school level by renovating facilities, admitting new students, and more. Please gain a higher score to up the level of the school. Let's aim to be the best. Okay. Greetings, Headmaster. I'll be your building consultant, Rick Johnson. Rick Johnson. Get a strip moke. Well, hello. Appreciate the follow. Thanks for hanging. I have no idea if that was super delayed or not. How are you doing on this fine day? Building a school, I hope? Rick Johnson. This building hasn't seen regular use in ages. I'm sure you don't want your students to see this place looking like a dump. Let's tidy it up first. Is time passing? No, it is paused. What am I doing? Clicking the... Okay. Okay. Bulldozer. What am I clicking? Just on some BS? Oh, got rid of the whole last room. Okay. That'll do. And that garbage, too. That was a super broad spectrum removal. Build classroom. I've never seen this place, actually. Never seen this place clean and tidy before. We can now focus on our first day. Let's build a classroom. Students should have their own classes and seats. On the build panel to build your school, it contains structures, facilities, furniture, environments, and other construction tools. Facility and classroom. Okay, so one classroom. I don't know if we need them this big or not. A shabby black. Is this a door? Yep. Need a podium. And at least one student desk. Yeah, we'll put down 3 for now. A hook to hold lunchbox. Okay. Put one of those up. My middle mouse button is broken. Oops. So I think we're good on the classroom. Satisfy all classroom requirements. Cool. Place 6 desks. Okay. I can do that. Save it. Edison Luke. School's teaching consultant. It seems that you're ready to recruit some students. They are a community. They're school's foundation. Visit the local community to get started. Oh, okay. You're just out here in the streets. This Lynn. This is where the potential students of our community are gathered. A lot of children in this community can start school soon. You can establish an admissions office here so that students may send in their applications. Admissions office needed. Families in this community are quite well off and generous spenders, but they also have their standards when it comes to the school's environment and offerings, specifically faculties, facilities, and services. Let's establish an office. Nine applications per week. Arena Heaven College of Marketing. Oh, well, they got some goals. I like that. Click Admit All. We got 4 students. I don't even know what these resources are. All students have been admitted. It's time to assign new students to a classroom and pick a homeroom teacher. Select class members. Select all. Homeroom teachers are needed to manage students, otherwise they will have disciplinary issues. Assign a teacher. Just a homeroom teacher. Okay, Miss Lynn. Class preparations are not complete. Let's unpause and let the school's activities continue. During daylight hours, students and teachers will come to start a new day of life at school. Come to the school gates to welcome students. There we go. New job applications have arrived. 3 people. Frustrated over bad results. Our parents said we aren't smart enough to study, but we never believed them. Hope Arconia Academy can help those Verdant Valley dreams come true. What up, kid? What up, kid? Welcome. Willkommen. Bienvenido. Four different types of courses. According to their aspirations, different students will need to gain knowledge points in the corresponding course types. For example, students with athletic aspirations will need sports courses, while those who want to learn robotics will need more science courses. Make sure your course schedule matches the needs of the students in the class. The estimated exam results are displayed on the right of the course schedule. Hover over each student icon for details for that student. Empty seats, estimated fails, estimated pass, estimated full marks. When you create the course schedule, pay attention to the estimated exam results. Try to make sure all the students reach passing marks. Current knowledge points versus target knowledge points. Exams will be held every Friday. The students' grades will be determined by the knowledge points they have gained. Students who reach the weekly goal will win contribution points for the school. After every exam, students will go up by a year. After 3 exams, they'll proceed to graduation. Students who pass their 3rd exam can be accepted by their target institution. This will give the school more contribution points. Okay. Next, schedule courses to ensure students are able to achieve the passing mark. They all have the same aspiration, which is basically just humanities and science. Feeling this. This drag and drop is frustrating. I'm feeling this. Why? Why? Thank you. Can't get rid of it. Oh no. Oh, I can. Stop it. What in the actual fuck? Shortest smile fades in the summer. Schedule 1 week of courses for any class. Okay. Control and drag to copy schedule. Well, that would have been useful before I did it. Whoa. Whoa, take it out. I can't pick up the pieces. Delinquent behavior. What am I supposed to be doing? Oh, I gotta go send him to address it. Stop. I'm sorry. Don't do it again. Discipline increased. Okay. This room's so dark I can't see anything. Can you place the solo window? Okay. I can do that. Windows. Yeah, aesthetic. Lighting done. Look at that. We cruising now. This is a house of learned doctors. Nice. They are satisfied. Just walk right through the hole in the wall. Safety. So it is recess. What's even happening right now? A group of hornets are building nests on the building. They are dangerous and they may attack your students. Find the hives and remove them. Okay. So 1, 2, and 3. Damn beehives. I guess we saw a section. I fucking hate bees. Sorry you got stung, bud. Feel for you. I do. Satisfaction decreased. Okay, let's just speed it up a bit. Hello, Headmaster. Miss Sweets, the school's lifestyle consultant. The students request a tea room so that they may have drinking water. You should do your best to satisfy all requests to ensure a good quality of life. Build and operate a tea room. Okay. Let's clean this place up first. Alright, so that's what we got to work with. Just gonna demolish anything that looks dumb or dumpy. Never be the same. Tea room. Overhead view I can get in. Okay. You alone. Let's get some windies up in this bish. Okay. Nice little tea room for the students. Hydration is very important. You don't say. Each breath that you take is a thunderous sound. Everything's magic. Job applications. Can have an art class. Just don't have one scheduled yet. It's chugging along. Nice. We need turlets. Okay, got a ladies' room. And a boys' room. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so what am I supposed to do about that? Forgetful. Learns slower in humanities courses. Okay, that happens. Running circles again. So we got our teacher training need a little bit better. This is the best teacher. But I don't think it's really time for us to add an actual new teacher into the mix. Tournament challenge, new facility. Man too deep, I'm trying to get. First day of school is about to end. Have you gotten used to school yet? Let's work hard and be the best school ever. And nighttime, midnight, 3 a.m., 6 a.m. There's an auto scheduler. We could try that out. Still days will thank you. Let's roll. Move along. What you got, buddy? Buy some food. A food tent. Need to research it first. I don't know how to research. Must first build a research room. Keep this. Research board. Okay. Okay, so researching food tent. Okay, looks like we've added enough of those. So we're setting a goal of teaching the best of the best. So essentially being the best school versus having the biggest or most diverse population or having the best building. All right. Well, I think it's going to be a good place to stop. A little bit short today, and I apologize. But I've been enrolled in, I think I'd mentioned a few times, I wanted to take a course to learn how to code. I'm a little bit behind, just life over the weekend. Got, real things happened, and I want to catch up on that. And I got a meeting with my mentor later today. So I got to pack in a whole bunch of real life stuff between now and then. So we're going to cut it a little bit short, but good place to stop. I'll be back again tomorrow. Maybe some Baldur's Gate, maybe some Remnant 2, maybe a little bit of both. Kind of whatever I'm feeling vibe tomorrow. So we'll see. But yeah, that's what Tuesdays are for. And then we'll be back again on Wednesday after that for Wheel Wednesday, playing something on our racing wheel setup. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I truly appreciate the new follows. I appreciate everybody hanging out and chatting with me. I had a great time today, so hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.